How to use your item ID in the Identification tab under Presets. PractiCAD gives you the ability to download from CAD to CAM and then have a unique ID number that would be attached to a barcode that would go on the label of your ductwork. In order to control that barcode number, we have added a feature called Item ID. To adjust it, we're first going to go into the library icon in the PractiCAD ribbon bar. On the left-hand side, when we close our browser, we need to go down to Presets, and we need to open up our preset options and go down to Identification. Here you will notice a section titled Item Identification, and we have 6 boxes. First, we have Branch ID, Software ID, and Item ID. The branch ID means that if you have multiple locations, you can state your branch ID number. So if we had 2 locations, one could be branch number 1, the other could be branch number 2. Second, we have Software ID. Software ID is used for the number of draftsmen you have in your company. Each station of PractiCAD can have its own software ID. So each station should be station 1, then station 2, then station 3, and so on, up into the number of draftsmen you have. So the beginning of the serial number will know the branch ID plus the software ID. The last is the item ID. The item ID is a unique serial number that PractiCAD counts at all times for all entities exported off the drawing. For example, if you download 10 entities today, item ID will then say 10. If you download 10 entities the next day, the item ID will finish off at 20. And this number will continue to count until you reset it. Notice you have maximal length. What maximal length means is the number of digits allowed for a specific ID number. For example, here we say that maximal length is 1. This means for branch ID, we should only have 1 digit, which means we wouldn't be allowed to have more than 9 branches, because to go to 10, we'd have to have 2 digits. You can see here that this station is current ID, that is branch ID number 1. So the current ID is number 1. This is site 1. Next, we have software ID. You can see that the current ID for this station is 1. Notice that we do allow here maximal length 2, which means that the ID number on the barcode could go up to 2 digits long. If it says 2 digits, and of course here we have current ID with 1 digit, the barcode would say 01, 02, 03, all the way up until we couldn't get any more digits. That is the reason why the maximal length for the item ID is 6 digits. We're obviously going to download a lot of duct. Each drawing could have 1,000 pieces of duct on it or more. So we're allowing here for 6 digits. And this is a number you might want to make as high as 10 digits. But being that it's 6 digits, my first piece of duct I download, which would be duct number 1, we'd have 5 zeros in front of it, plus the digit 1 for 6 digits. So we set up our item identification. Once it's set, we can exit out of the library. Here you can see we have a duct run that's been piece numbered 1 through 7. And we've used unique piece numbers for each ductwork, so you can see that we've got 7 pieces on the drawing. If we run an export command and export the duct, you will see that the ID number will change. We're going to run an export command now. Once we've clicked the export button and press OK to confirm the ductwork has been exported, and there are tutorials on exporting duct, the second we go back into our presets item ID, we can see here under identification that it shows the current ID number as number 7. That's because we've exported 7 pieces. If we export another 3 pieces, the ID will switch to 10. This number will continue to count forever up until your max digits or until you reset it back to 0. To take a look at what this number would look like on the barcode, we're going to go into PractiCAD. Based on what we have here, we've got 1 digit for maximum length current ID, so we should see the number 1 first. We've got 2 digits for software ID, and the ID is 1, so we should see 0, 1 here. And then for item ID, we've got 6 digits, so we should see 5 zeros and the number 7 for the last piece of duct, that barcode. We're going to switch over to PractiCAD currently. Here we are looking at the takeoff after it's been downloaded and imported into PractiCAD. You can see here we've got our 7 fittings. Each of them should have a unique number based on the item ID we created in PractiCAD. As a matter of fact, if we go into the label icon here and we look at a label, you can see what we've got. First, we've got the branch ID, which is 1 digit set and number 1. Second, we have the 2-digit software ID, which is 01 for my station. And then we have the 6-digit item ID. And the current ID for this must have been the 6th fitting downloaded. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 zeros, and then the 6. If you go down to the very next fitting, you'll notice that it has its own unique ID. So each fitting never gets the same ID when we do barcoding. One important thing to mention is that you must have your label template set correctly. I'm going to go over into labels right now, and we're going to grab the PractiCAD training level. And here we're going to click on the barcode that we have added for this tutorial. And notice right here that we've got 2 types of barcode types currently. One is standard, one is from barcode reader. You must have it set from the barcode reader to get the item ID from PractiCAD. We offer multiple options for barcoding, and most of the time this is done on a custom basis, so always use your support line if you have any questions or need any assistance with barcoding. That'll conclude the tutorial on the item ID.